Technically speaking, Earth was a Class 15 Deathworld. The designation alone should have been enough to halt any military ambitions. Even the most aggressive species in the Galactic Confederacy, the Vulture warlords and the Lithari swarms, refused to approach planets rated beyond Class 12. The classifications weren't arbitrary. They represented a tiered scale of natural hostility factors like atmospheric toxicity, predator evolution, gravitational stress, and environmental volatility. A Class 15 meant the planet wasn't just dangerous. It was suicide wrapped in chaos. But the Zarketh Dominion didn't believe in legends. They believed in conquest. Commander Viktal stood aboard the Dominion dreadnought Zarna's Vengeance, orbiting the blue marble they had so arrogantly targeted. His crimson exosuit hummed faintly, calibrated for combat. His slitted yellow eyes scanned the planetary overview. "Class 15, he scoffed, mandibles clicking with disdain. Surely a clerical error. The science officer, a pale-skinned Vokari, with 3 nervous eye stalks, didn't respond immediately. His fingers hovered over a holoscreen, projecting atmospheric models of Earth-violent lightning storms, rapid temperature shifts, massive biotic diversity. A primitive species, humans, populated it. Their cities clustered around coastlines, their radio waves messy and unsophisticated. They survived here? The officer muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Survived? They're savages. Metal sticks, combustion vehicles, and superstition. A Class 3 civilization at best, Viktal declared. This planet is ripe for reclamation. The Dominion Fleet 12 dreadnoughts, 30 assault carriers, and over 1,000 drone frigates began deployment procedures. The operation, codenamed Crimson Harvest, was to be swift and merciless. Establish a beachhead, crush resistance, reclaim the planet as a mineral extraction zone. Simple. Reports came in from scouts. Flora more aggressive than expected. Fauna resistant to stun. Fields. Some small-scale combat drones had been destroyed by localized lightning strikes, anomalies, nothing more, until the jungle swallowed the first squad. Zarketh shock troopers were sent to secure a clearing in a dense rainforest. Their location. Pinged steadily for 11 minutes, then silence. No emergency signal, no combat distress, just gone. Viktal was annoyed, not concerned. Send in drones. Thermal sweep. I want their armor tags retrieved. The drones, sleek machines with 6 rotors and plasma sensors, buzzed into the canopy. They found scattered pieces, shredded armor, torn helmets, blood smeared across leaves. One drone captured a final image before its feed cut, a humanoid silhouette. Body coated in mud and camouflage, eyes glowing faintly behind a cracked visor. A whisper followed the image. You shouldn't have come here. Human theatrics, Viktal said, waving it off. They've mastered psychological projection, that's all. But more anomalies followed. Recon satellites malfunctioned. Over the Pacific, a climate monitoring station installed on a high plateau was destroyed by what the tech team insisted was a large territorial bird. A Dominion excavation probe in the Arctic exploded when it struck a fossilized structure of non-natural design buried beneath 4 kilometers of ice. And then there was the man. One of the Dominion's atmospheric samplers crashed near an abandoned human city. Recovery teams dispatched. What returned was partial footage of a lone human figure walking out of the ruins barefoot, shirtless, bleeding but carrying the Dominion probe over one shoulder like it weighed nothing. He looked into the drone lens, grinned, and said, "You boys don't learn, do you?" Then crushed the probe with one hand. The scientists didn't laugh. The footage was analyzed. That level of strength shouldn't be possible in a being without genetics enhancement. Viktal had it redacted and buried in the archives. "We do not fear primitives," he told his command staff. "Our superiority lies in discipline, not superstition." But his navigators and officers whispered when he wasn't near. The designation Class 15 was being repeated more and more. The Galactic Confederacy had only ever identified 3 other Class 15 planets. 2 had been obliterated by gamma bursts before they could be studied. The 3rd had swallowed an entire mining fleet and then vanished into what scientists now called a dark rift. All 3 were marked with planetary red bands. No contact. No colonization. No visitation. Earth remained alone as the only Class 15 with known intelligent life. That should have made the Dominion pause, but it didn't, because Victile believed in numbers, not stories. In plasma weaponry, not old legends. In cold strategy, not fear. We move at dawn, he declared, and high above Earth. A Dominion dreadnought opened, its hangars like the jaws of a beast preparing to bite. But Earth was not afraid. It had watched the stars for a long time, and it was smiling. The Minion's assault began with surgical precision. Dropships screamed through the atmosphere like falling stars, carving through thunderclouds as anti-gravity dampeners pushed against the planet's unruly weather. Swarms of Zarketh enforcers landed across varied biomes, deserts, jungles, tundras, city ruins. The Earth, by their calculations, would fall in phases. There were no planetary shields, no orbital defenses, no signs of centralized human leadership. Just scattered nations, divided cultures, and rudimentary militaries. It would be a culling. Commander Victal reviewed the maps with rising confidence. A dozen zones were already under Dominion control. No organized resistance had yet appeared. See? He said, standing before the strategic holomap. Deathworld or not, the prey scatters once the predator lands. But the prey wasn't running. In South America, a Dominion outpost in the Andes went silent. Scouts sent to investigate found the station stripped clean, every weapon, every data core, and every corpse missing. Not destroyed, taken. The walls were marked in deep gouges as if claws or blades had torn through alloy. Then, in Central Africa, a full mech battalion was deployed to secure a savannah plain. The soldiers laughed as they stepped into their towering exosuits, confident that primitive humans with their bullets and steel knives couldn't match the Dominion's armored gods. But hours later, all that returned were blackened husks. One mech had been felled by dozens of sharpened wooden poles driven through its joint seams. Another had melted from the inside, its reactor flash-boiled by something non-nuclear. The engineers were baffled. They adapted faster than expected. One muttered, "They must have scavenged our tech." "No," said another, pointing to recovered footage. "That wasn't our tech." The video showed a human woman mid-30s, wearing a mix of camouflage and scavenged metal armor, scaling a mech mid-combat, wrenching open its neck port, and detonating something inside with surgical precision. "She knew exactly where to strike," the engineer whispered, "as if she's fought these things before." In orbit, Victal's patience began to crack. He increased deployment strength tenfold. Entire cities were locked down with energy barriers. Hostile terrain was napalmed from space. He issued kill-on-sight orders for any human over the age of 10. The humans still didn't retreat. They watched from treetops, sewers, subway tunnels, caves, and dead cities. They recorded every patrol, every Dominion tactic. And then slowly they began to push back. A Dominion forward base in Siberia found its coolant lines frozen solid from within a calculated exposure to supercooled atmospheric gases rerouted through ventilation by an unknown saboteur. When the crew tried to evacuate, they were met by dozens of silent figures in white, armed with blades that left no trace. Not soldiers, not mercenaries, locals, hunters, rangers, survivors. In Australia, a convoy of Dominion tanks disappeared while crossing the outback. Recon drones found only deep trenches in the red dirt and piles of armor buried in sand. No signs of struggle, no signals. Just a single message etched into a boulder nearby. "You don't belong here." In orbit, Zarketh officers began murmuring. among themselves. Why hadn't they seen these signs earlier? Why were there no major human governments responding? Why weren't Earth's own militaries trying to stop the aliens? The answer was becoming clear. The humans weren't ignoring the invasion. They were letting it unfold. Watching, measuring, waiting. Then came the worst sign. A Dominion scout ship detected a radiation surge coming from an abandoned human site in Nevada. Curious, Victal ordered a closer inspection. What the team discovered stunned even the Dominion's brightest minds. Beneath a desert plateau, sealed under 4 layers of artificial bedrock, was a facility dating back centuries pre-collapse by Earth standards. Inside were rows of cryopods, dormant weapons, and ancient AI systems coded in languages no longer spoken. One pod, cracked open, had clearly failed. The contents gone. The Dominion recovered a black box and translated it. It contained a warning. If this site is breached by off-world forces, assume Terran contingency protocol. Evac is not authorized. Earth is not to be conquered. Earth is to be survived. A silence fell across the Dominion bridge as the message played in full. Then again, if it's true, whispered the science officer, then Earth was prepared. For this, millennia ago. Commander Victal refused to show fear, but his tone grew strained. Begin full spectrum analysis. I want every dormant structure scanned. Every cave, crater, and canyon. I want to know everything they've buried. But Earth was vast, its secrets deeper than oceans. And for every anomaly they uncovered, 10 more appeared. There was the unmarked crater in the Congo that emitted signals and frequencies not native to the galaxy. The impossible monolith in the Mariana Trench that defied mass and dimension scans. The brief but terrifying moment when their entire orbital network was hit with an encrypted message written in flawless Zarkith dialect, one no human should know. It read, "You've stepped into the graveyard of gods." Even Victal couldn't brush that one off, because slowly, terrifyingly, the Dominion was realizing what humans had always known. It wasn't that Earth was a death world. It was that Earth was still here. Despite everything. And now, it was watching them back. The skies above Earth pulsed with static. Dominion command ships flickered in and out of sensor range. Orbital comm relays glitched sporadically. Entire carrier groups began reporting software anomalies, AI miscalculations, unexplained command reversals, and atmospheric distortion fields too complex to be natural. Commander Victal stood still. On the Zarni's Vengeance, his arms folded tightly as his crew scrambled around him. Holo displays sputtered. Drone feeds crashed. Long-range scans yielded contradictory data indicating structures beneath the Earth's surface that should have collapsed centuries ago or never existed at all. "This planet is actively resisting us," growled the science officer. "No, Victal," replied, his voice sharp. "Planets do not think. They do not retaliate. This is human sabotage, or worse, human strategy." His words were meant to reassure the crew. But deep inside, he knew something was wrong. The turning point came in the Andes. The Dominion had begun construction of a planetary stabilization outpost, a massive operation involving dozens of terraforming rigs, shield towers, and orbital support. The site had been cleared with brutal efficiency. Forests razed, valleys flattened, wildlife exterminated. A testament to Dominion strength. And then, during the 75th hour of the build, the entire project vanished, not bombed, not destroyed. Vanished. 30,000 Dominion troops, 6 capital-class hover rigs, 40 square kilometers of equipment and structures gone. No debris, no energy residue, not even bodies. The area was found eerily quiet, as if untouched. The only clue left behind was a single standing sign in broken Zarkith script. "You were not invited." Panic rippled through the ranks. Emergency briefings were called. Internal sensors combed through every Dominion ship for sabotage. Zarkith operatives turned paranoid, suspecting infiltration. Surveillance doubled. Background checks reinitiated. But none of it mattered. Because the next blow didn't come from within their ranks. It came from beneath them. On the northern edge of what used to be the United States, a massive underground bunker long ignored due to old intel came online. Dominion. Scouts approached cautiously, expecting ruins. Instead, they found a fortress carved into the bones of the earth. The bunker's gates opened, and from it rolled machines unlike anything seen in the galactic record. They weren't pretty. They weren't sleek or elegant like Dominion war drones. They were ugly, brutal, purposeful. Old Earth war machines wheeled tanks, tracked artillery, walkers lined with armor so thick it defied modern sensors, drones powered by nuclear cores, AI constructs wrapped in steel and rage. Some were cobbled together with parts clearly salvaged from Dominion tech. They moved like they remembered what war was. The Dominion deployed countermeasures, expecting an easy sweep, but the Earth machines didn't fight fair. They didn't line up. They didn't broadcast targeting signals. They hunted. Whole Dominion regiments vanished into mountain passes. Others reported being baited into canyons, where the very walls collapsed on them. A scout team attempted to flee a swarm of Earth drones, only to find their path blocked by what had appeared to be a natural rockslide, until the rocks rose up and tore them apart. These weren't just machines. They were legacy systems built long before the Dominion had even left their homeworld, buried, hidden, preserved, and now reawakened. The science officer paled as new footage streamed in from a crashed recon drone. It captured a massive humanoid exosuit emerging from a forest, blackened and scarred, but operational. Standing at least 20 meters tall, its shoulders bore ancient flags tattered, but still visible. The human piloting it looked up at the drone. His face was half covered in a cracked helmet. A red light pulsed from one cybernetic eye. He didn't speak. He nodded, then crushed the drone underfoot. That suit, double quotes, the engineer whispered. It's using magnetic propulsion from the Iron Age, but there's no energy bleed. No thermal signature. It's silent. That shouldn't be possible. They've rediscovered things we've forgotten, the science officer said grimly. Or maybe they never forgot. Viktal clenched his mandibles tightly. This is an illusion of strength, a relic parade. But even as he spoke, a new data packet arrived, this one from deep space surveyors on the fringes of the Sol system. They had been tracing unusual gravitational fluxes near Jupiter. And they had found something. A fleet. Not Dominion. Not any known Confederacy design. Black ships. No transponders. No drive signatures. No com signals. They floated like tombstones in the void. Thousands of them, wrapped in a perfect formation. A single message came from one of the dormant ships, broadcast in a language no Dominion AI could decode until it translated itself in Zarkith tongue. Sol Accord. Status green. Earth engaged. Threat acknowledged. Reclamation authorized. No one on the bridge of the Zarni's Vengeance spoke for a long moment. Finally, the communications officer turned to Viktal. Commander, what is the Sol Accord? The question hung heavy in the air. And for the first time, Commander Viktal did not have an answer. Instead, his gaze dropped to the planet below. To the cradle of monsters. To the graveyard of empires. And slowly, he realized this was not an invasion. The skies above Earth pulsed with static. Dominion command ships flickered in and out of sensor range. Orbital comm relays glitched sporadically. Entire carrier groups began reporting software anomalies, AI miscalculations, unexplained command reversals, and atmospheric distortion fields too complex to be natural. Commander Viktal stood still on the Zarna's Vengeance, his arms folded tightly as his crew scrambled around him. Hollow displays sputtered. Drone feeds crashed. Long-range scans yielded contradictory data indicating Structures beneath the Earth's surface that should have collapsed centuries ago, or never existed at all. "This planet is actively resisting us," growled the science officer. "No, Victal," replied, his voice sharp. "Planets do not think. They do not retaliate. This is human sabotage, or worse, human strategy." His words were meant to reassure the crew. But deep inside, he knew something was wrong. The turning point came in the Andes. The Dominion had begun construction of a planetary stabilization outpost, a massive operation involving dozens of terraforming rigs, shield towers, and orbital support. The site had been cleared with brutal efficiency. Forests razed, valleys flattened, wildlife exterminated. A testament to Dominion's strength. And then, during the 75th hour of the build, the entire project vanished. Not bombed, not destroyed. Vanished. 30,000 Dominion troops, 6 capital-class hover rigs, 40 square kilometers of equipment and structures gone. No debris, no energy residue, not even bodies. The area was found eerily quiet, as if untouched. The only clue left behind was a single standing sign in broken Zarkith script. "You were not invited." Panic rippled through the ranks. Emergency briefings were called. Internal sensors combed through every Dominion ship for sabotage. Zarkith operatives turned paranoid, suspecting infiltration. Surveillance doubled. Background checks reinitiated. None of it mattered. Because the next blow didn't come from within their ranks. It came from beneath them. On the northern edge of what used to be the United States, a massive underground bunker long ignored due to old intel came online. Dominion. Scouts approached cautiously, expecting ruins. Instead, they found a fortress carved into the bones of the earth. The bunker's gates opened, and from it rolled machines unlike anything seen in the galactic record. They weren't pretty. They weren't sleek or elegant like Dominion war drones. They were ugly, brutal, purposeful. Old Earth war machines wheeled tanks, tracked artillery, walkers lined with armor so thick it defied modern sensors, drones powered by nuclear cores, AI constructs wrapped in steel and rage. Some were cobbled together with parts clearly salvaged from Dominion tech. They moved like they remembered what war was. The Dominion deployed countermeasures, expecting an easy sweep, but the Earth machines didn't fight fair. They didn't line up. They didn't broadcast targeting signals. They hunted. Whole Dominion regiments vanished into mountain passes. Others reported being baited into canyons, where the very walls collapsed on them. A scout team attempted to flee a swarm of Earth drones, only to find their path blocked by what had appeared to be a natural rock slide, until the rocks rose up and tore them apart. These weren't just machines. They were legacy systems. Built long before the Dominion had even left their homeworld. Buried, hidden, preserved, and now reawakened. The science officer paled as new footage streamed in from a crashed recon drone. It captured a massive humanoid exosuit emerging from a forest, blackened and scarred, but operational. Standing at least 20 meters tall, its shoulders bore ancient flags tattered, but still visible. The human piloting it looked up at the drone. His face was half covered in a cracked helmet. A red light pulsed from one cybernetic eye. He didn't speak. He nodded. Then crushed the drone underfoot. "That suit ... quotes the engineer whispered. "It's using magnetic propulsion from the Iron Age, but there's no energy bleed. No thermal signature. It's silent. That shouldn't be possible. They've rediscovered things we've forgotten," the science officer said grimly. "Or maybe ... they never forgot." Victal clenched his mandibles tightly. This is an illusion of strength, a relic parade. But even as he spoke, a new data packet arrived, this one from deep space surveyors on the fringes of the Sol system. They had been tracing unusual gravitational fluxes near Jupiter. And they had found something. A fleet. Not Dominion. Not any known Confederacy design. Black ships, no transponders, no drive signatures. No signals. They floated like tombstones in the void. Thousands of them, wrapped in a perfect formation. A single message came from one of the dormant ships, broadcast in a language no Dominion AI could decode, until it translated itself in Zarketh tongue, soul accord, status green, Earth engaged. Threat acknowledged, reclamation authorized. No one on the bridge of the Zarni's Vengeance spoke for a long moment. Finally, the communications officer turned to Viktal, Commander. What is the soul accord? The question hung heavy in the air. And for the first time, Commander Viktal did not have an answer. Instead, his gaze dropped to the planet below, to the cradle of monsters, to the graveyard of empires. And slowly, he realized this was not an invasion. The Soul Accord fleet began its descent, not in fire and fury like the Dominion had expected. No glowing weapon discharges, no fleets warping into low orbit. The great black ships simply moved into position, silent, weightless giants that cast shadows on Earth's moon as they passed. And then, Earth responded. Signals began to rise from the planet's surface, not from one central location, but from dozens of long-dormant sites simultaneously. Buried satellite arrays, deep-sea transmission cables, abandoned missile silos, reactivated after centuries of silence. They weren't broadcasting in human languages. They were speaking in code. Old code. Encrypted layers built from dead tongues and extinct mathematics. It bypassed Dominion firewalls and spread like infection through their network. Not a virus, not sabotage, something worse. A presence.ai cores screamed and shut themselves down. Tactical drones ignored commands. Shipboard systems triggered lockdowns with no override. Entire Dominion carriers began to drift listlessly in orbit as Earth's signal embedded itself into their systems like a ghost learning their thoughts. Commander, Viktal stood on the bridge of the Zarni's Vengeance, his four fists clenched behind, his back staring at the ocean of Earth's clouds. He didn't speak, didn't scream, because screaming would be admitting fear, and fear meant Earth had already won. Sir, the comms officer stammered, we're receiving a hail from the surface. Viktal turned slowly. A human transmission? The officer nodded. No, sir, it's Dominion frequency. Black tier command channel. The one reserved for emergencies. No human should even know it exists. Play it. The bridge speakers crackled to life. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then a calm, steady voice, clearly human, spoke in perfect Zarketh dialect. We buried the gods you pray to. Do you think we fear their children? The line went dead. The silence that followed felt colder than any vacuum. Within the hour, the black sun descended. It was not a ship. It was a construct of such scale and design that no Dominion record could define it. Orbiting Earth's far side since long before the Zarketh were born, it moved with elegance beyond reason, breaking the laws of mass and inertia. Not cloaked, just overlooked. It came alive like a myth recalled. The black, sun-activated orbital control arrays that seized the gravity wells of nearby Zarketh ships, snapping their trajectories and hurling them into each other like pebbles in. A Storm.1 Dominion dreadnought managed to fire a plasma barrage at the construct. The barrage never landed. The space between the weapons and the target folded, imploded, and swallowed the energy. The dreadnought was turned inside out, down on Earth. The humans didn't even flinch. They weren't surprised. They weren't amazed. They had waited for this. From the ruins of Detroit to the glaciers of Patagonia, hidden vaults opened. Humanity's lost cities, its buried bunkers and artificial intelligence mines older than some stars, awakened. And they remembered everything. Zarketh ground troops began defecting, those who weren't immediately slaughtered by the humans found themselves captured, only to be released days later, staggering, hollow-eyed, whispering things that made no sense. Voices under the ground. They're not a species. They're a storm dressed in skin. We thought they were late to evolve. But they've just been waiting. The Dominion had finally understood. This wasn't an empire. It wasn't even a civilization. It was a revenant. Humanity had reached beyond the stars once thousands of years ago. They had built the Soul Accord in secret after the fall of the old Earth Order. They had touched other galaxies and returned changed. The humans left behind on Earth weren't backward. They were the guardians. They were the final wall. The ones who stayed behind on the Deathworld to protect what was coming next. And now, the next had returned. The Soul Accord ships moved into low orbit, finally revealing their full forms. They were monstrous, some city-sized, others skeletal, bristling with technology that bent space around them like ripples on a pond. Each ship bore the same insignia, a human skull resting on a shattered crown. A message was transmitted to every Dominion vessel, untranslated, uncoded, and unmistakable in its intent. The last war ended before your species began. You have opened a door that can never be closed. Commander Viktal stared at the display. The words pulsed in tandem with his ship's core. It was as if Earth's message wanted him to feel it. And he did. Zrke to leadership tried to mount a defense. New battle orders were issued, ships armed, systems purged of infected code, ground units restructured, but it didn't matter, because the humans had already adapted, because Earth was never passive, because the storm had remembered how to rage. As Dominion soldiers across the planet huddled behind walls and watched the sky turn black with Soul Accord reinforcements. One single realization passed through every mind simultaneously. They hadn't invaded a primitive species. They had kicked open the gates of something ancient, something starved. The first strike came without warning. High above the Earth, in the quiet black between planetary orbit and deep space, the Dominion flagship Zarnath's Mercy exploded, not with fire or fanfare, but with silence. 1 second it was whole, bristling with weapons, housing 30,000 troops and a command AI, and the next it was a cloud of shredded alloy and frozen bodies drifting aimlessly. No weapon signature. No energy trail. Just annihilation. Across the Dominion fleet, alarms screamed. Officers shouted over glitching comms. Tactical overlays began to distort as jamming signals, ancient, analog, and untraceable, flooded their sensors. Then, like specters from a forgotten war, the Soul Accord fleet descended, not like modern fleets that engaged with strategy and range. They dived. Black-hulled behemoths plummeted from low orbit like spears thrown by titans, using gravity as a weapon. Dominion flat cannons opened fire. But the targeting systems failed. Soul Accord ships shimmered like mirages, dipping in and out of phase. Some of the shots hit. Most didn't. It didn't matter. The first Soul Accord ship to make contact, a jagged cruiser with no name, just a painted white skull on its prow, slammed into a Dominion destroyer head-on, tearing through its shields and rupturing its core with raw inertia. And behind it, hundreds more followed. The sky turned into war. The humans didn't fight like the Dominion. They didn't maintain formations. They didn't care for efficiency. They fought like beasts. Like something that had been caged too long. Like vengeance made flesh. Earth-based forces joined the chaos from below. Hidden missile silos, long buried under mountain ranges and oceans, roared to life. Hypersonic projectiles erupted from tectonic vaults and shattered orbital carriers before they could raise shields. Human mechs, massive, brutal machines built to thrive in gravity that crushed most species, launched themselves into the upper atmosphere via magnetic slings. They hit Dominion vessels like meteorites, tearing open hulls with plasma blades, crawling through corridors like armored insects, and leaving nothing breathing in their wake. Viktal, watching the carnage from the bridge of the Zarni's vengeance, had no more words to bark, no more orders to give. The humans weren't just fighting, they were dismantling Dominion. Troop transports tried to retreat to the surface, hoping for ground advantage. They found no sanctuary. The planet they had thought to conquer had turned. Hostile in every way, the terrain shifted literally. Mountain ridges collapsed under Dominion convoys, revealing pre-laid kill zones bristling with kinetic harpoons and pressure mines. Dense forests that had seemed primitive days before now funneled enemy squads into narrow, invisible choke points where human hunters waited. Zarketh soldiers reported hallucinations, blinding lights, whispers in dead languages, and impossible shadows that bled into their minds. Their own equipment turned against them. Guns jammed. HUDs scrambled. A Zarketh lieutenant's last transmission from Eastern Europe came as a garbled shriek. They are part of the planet. The trees move. The ground knows. Then silenced. Cities once thought abandoned flickered with unexpected life. In the ruins of old New York, Dominion units were ambushed by human soldiers wearing a patch that hadn't been seen in 600 years. UNSC, Earth's Unified Naval Command. When one Dominion officer tried to communicate for surrender, the only reply he received was a bullet through the eye. In the Arctic, a single human emerged from a glacier storm, clad in old-world armor and wielding what appeared to be a relic rifle. The Zarketh platoon laughed until he aimed at their command vehicle. One shot, one bolt of light. The entire transport ceased to exist. Satellite footage revealed that same man an hour later, walking calmly across the tundra, flanked by a squad of what appeared to be human children, young, unarmored, but every one of them carrying Dominion blades as trophies. This was no longer a war. It was a purge. The Solar Accord ships began a coordinated, atmospheric maneuver, a ringed encirclement of the Earth, spinning like a defensive halo. From this position, they deployed kinetic rods, massive tungsten pillars, accelerated from orbit using ancient rail systems. No explosions. No radiation. Just raw force. One strike obliterated the central Dominion staging ground in Africa. Another shattered an ocean carrier in the Pacific, generating a tsunami that conveniently redirected itself around human coastal cities and crashed directly into the remaining Zarketh fleets. How? Nobody knew. Earth wanted them gone. And the humans? The humans were the executioners. Inside the Zarna's vengeance, the ship's eye began to fray. Core logic loops collapsed. The ship's own system refused to obey override commands. Life support dimmed. The reactor began to hum dangerously. Viktal turned toward the observation deck. Through the fractured glass, he watched as dozens of Dominion ships fell, consumed in fire or erased in silence. A transmission crackled to life. Human voice. Calm, male, young. Now you understand. Viktal didn't respond. You thought we were primitive because we stopped. We stopped because we had to. We weren't ready to be what we are now. A pause. You made us ready. Outside, Earth burned not in defeat, but in judgment. And the galaxy would remember this day, not as the fall of the Dominion, but as the moment it remembered why you don't invade a Deathworld. Especially not one that learned to smile back. The smoke had cleared. Above Earth, the wreckage of the Dominion fleet drifted like ashes scattered on black velvet. Twisted hulls of Zarketh dreadnoughts spun silently in orbit, their weapon systems dead, their engines frozen, their banners charred and shredded. Every Dominion beacon had gone dark. No rescue calls, no fallback coordinates, no defiant last words, only silence. And Earth, once again, turned in peace. Not quiet. No. Peace on Earth was never quiet. It was the distant rumble of tectonic movements. It was the echo of armored boots marching through the ruins of their would-be conquerors. It was the hiss of wind over broken steel, and the click of human boots as soldiers moved among the wreckage, collecting salvage and scanning for survivors, not to finish them, but to learn, because that was what humans did best. They remembered. Deep in the Pacific Trench, the Solar Accord's flagship, the Nocturne Ascendant, began to power down. Not because it lacked energy, not because it feared a second wave, but because it knew its job was done. Aboard its bridge, a human commander stood still, dressed not in ornate uniform or gilded armor, but in simple gray cloth with old medals pinned to his chest and a worn-out dog tag resting just above his heart. He watched Earth below with quiet, haunted pride. "She's still got teeth," he murmured to himself, "even after all these years." Behind him, one of the Accord's younger AI constructs flickered to life, shaped in the likeness of a 12-year-old girl with white eyes and a silver voice. Threat level neutralized. Galactic broadcast intercepts indicate Dominion remnants are retreating to the Varnak expanse. 70% casualties. All fleets recalled. Earth classification has been updated to Class 15 unapproachable. He nodded slowly. "Make it worse." The AI paused. "Sir?" The commander turned, a cold glint in his eyes. "I want Earth reclassified as Class 18, unofficially. Let the galaxy guess. Let fear fill in the blanks." The AI smiled faintly. "Human psychology weaponized again." "No," he said. "Not weaponized, unleashed." On the ground, Zarkith survivors, few and broken, were gathered under human guard. They were not tortured nor executed. That was not Earth's way. Not anymore. That was the old Earth, the one that created monsters out of men and called them heroes. These prisoners were brought before human commanders and shown the truth, not out of mercy, but to make them understand. They were shown history. They were shown what Earth had endured, the extinction events, the wars that cracked continents, the genocides, the chemical scars, the cities that vanished in flame, the machines that once ruled and were dethroned, the empires that rose and fell and rose again, the stars that were reached and abandoned, the deep cryovaults. The world-spanning A is turned to stone. The black archives where memories were stored in quantum strands, waiting for moments like this. They were shown what it meant to be human. And the Zarkith did not speak. Because what words could they possibly offer to a world that had survived everything? Minister Kelra, one of the few Dominion leaders to survive, was taken to an old Earth library, still standing in the heart of what had once been Prague. No guards, no weapons. Just books. Paper books. "Why?" she asked, voice hollow. A human general with a scar down one eye simply smiled and handed her a dusty tome titled The Art of War. "Because you believed we were too primitive to win," he said. Kelra turned the pages with trembling claws. No power sources, no neural links. Just ink and pulp. You survived by going backward. The general shook his head. "No, we survived by remembering forward." The galaxy watched. From the trade halls of the Varnathi Confederacy to the data clouds of the Lithari hive mind, every species with a transmitter caught glimpses of Earth's retaliation. Some dismissed it as exaggerated war propaganda. Others treated it as a horror story for their children, but the wisest among them updated their navigational charts. A red circle now marked Sol System. A label followed. "Here be monsters." Not in hate, not in scorn. In respect, because the Dominion hadn't lost a war. They'd started a legend, back in orbit. The human commander stepped outside the Nocturne Ascendant, his mag boots locking onto the hull. Earth filled half the sky before him, green, blue, white. Beautiful, terrifying. A young soldier floated beside him. "Sir, will they come back?" The commander didn't answer immediately. He looked at Earth, at its scars, at its slow healing. "They always come back," he said quietly. "Curiosity is the nature of the stars." "Then what do we do?" The commander turned. His voice was not angry. It was tired. It was human. "We wait. And when they come again, we remind them." "Remind them of what?" The commander smiled faintly. "That Earth was the first Deathworld, and we made it a home. And somewhere, in the deepest vault beneath the crust, another machine woke. Not out of need, but in anticipation, because peace, in human terms, is not the absence of war, it is the space between storms.